Hello, everyone. I am 2 minutes late, all to do with presentations, but I am here. And yes, today this is the Queen's speech. So, where do I start? I'm tired. That is the gospel truth. Of course, as a menopause woman, I get a bit sleepy, but it's not that kind of tired that I am talking about. I mean, if sleep could fix this, I'd be a very, very happy woman. But it really comes from the same fight that we are watching play out every day, decade after decade, with the same excuses, all dressed up in a different language. I'm tired of watching women shrink themselves to fit into rooms that really were just not designed for them at all. And they were designed years, maybe even decades ago. I am tired of watching leaders nod along on International Women's Day and months like this, whilst quietly defunding the programs that actually were starting to help to move the needle. And I'm tired, real tired, of watching really brilliant, amazing, powerful women doubt themselves because the system keeps telling them that their value is negotiable. And if it's not negotiable, then it's not good enough. So, enough. That is the title of today. Enough is enough. In the last 12 months, I can tell you that 65% of, of Fortune 500 companies have pulled out of corporate equality reporting. That's a lot. It's a lot, 65%. And, they didn't slink out of the room. What they did is they stampeded out towards the dam exit. And governments that once championed gender equality are now slashing funding to pay for defense budgets and calling it pragmatism. I mean, we're at war. It's mad. The UK alone has cut international aid for women and girls by half since 2021. These are programs that kept women, girls alive, basically. It educated girls and they allowed or helped survivors to get support, places to go. But now those doors are closing. I know I sit on the board of nomore.org, and last year we set up a fund to help many of the non-profit organizations who had lost so much funding in the coals. And this work that was all around eradicating domestic assault and sexual assault, domestic violence, this crucial work that is required, really in our world, we should be over this. Suddenly all their funding was gone. They lost something like 80% of their funding. Can you imagine how much support got lost? Can you imagine how much impact that had on women and girls? And the word gender, well, some governments are actually trying to remove that completely, absolutely completely from their policy documents, as though I find it incredulous. It's like, if you stop naming women, do you think that the problem is just going to suddenly disappear? It doesn't disappear. It gets buried. Because they buried the women employees under a meritocracy headstone that doesn't exist. And then decided that there are no inequality issues. The discrimination that we have been fighting against for centuries never, ever left the building. What did leave was the will to eradicate it. Now, despite my presentation, I'm going to tell you, my presentation didn't look like this. This is StreamYard for you. It is what it is. The thing about it is that despite legislation existing, women across the globe are certainly experiencing a regression. They are experiencing a regression in every single aspect, in so many: pensions, menopause, sexual abuse and harassment, maternity leave, flexible working, pay, domestic abuse, leadership, pay gaps. The lack of health support is incredible. Unsafe and insecure working conditions and protections either don't exist or they're being culled. And you want to tell us, what about men? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not here to bash all men, because it's not all men. And I know some of you love to say that it's not all men. But here's the truth. But it is men who are leading this. It's men who control the power. It's men that are holding us back in lots of different ways. It's men who are gatekeeping. And the sooner we appreciate that, we recognize that, the better. It's not enough to say it's not all men, when the truth of the matter is, this is whose hands it sits in. You know, here's the thing. The women have been buried under that headstone. It doesn't even exist, the headstone, because we all know that meritocracy actually doesn't really exist. And then what happened is, in deciding that there are no equality issues, the women, the global majority, people with disabilities, LGBTQ plus people, were told they were just complaining. And this is crazy to me, because my existence is just as important as your existence. So what I want to talk about is also what's happening in America, what's happening across the globe. Why is this so important? Because it's a warning for all of us. We know this because what happens in America impacts the rest of the world. You know, they used to say that when America sneezes, the UK catches a cold. And the largest rollback of federal health care in the US is basically for pregnant workers and for, sorry, let me get that right. The largest rollback in the US is being called cost cutting, supposedly saving the nation, but it's anything but saving the nation. Workplace harassment guidance is being rescinded. Protections for pregnant workers are being quietly dismantled, and civil rights enforcements basically are being undermined. It's a hot mess. And the very idea that gender equality is a shared national value is actually being recast under it being unmerited favoritism. Can you imagine? Unmerited favoritism. There are politicians actively pursuing a policy agenda that would use a 150-year-old law to ban abortion pills sent through the post, strip emergency abortion care from hospitals, and embed so-called fetal personhood across federal agencies. Not content with that, some are proposing policies that would reserve scholarships and federal aid for married people and parents, effectively penalizing women for being single. And let me say that plainly. The men that are in positions of power, who believe they own women's bodies, who believe that if a woman doesn't produce children, then she should face financial and civic consequences, who believe that motherhood should be compelled, not chosen, they're becoming more rife. And what we're watching is forced motherhood dressed up as family values. And we're supposed to nod along politely and say it's all okay. I will not nod along politely, never. And neither should you. The things that are happening are deeply alarming. And if you're not alarmed, you should be. So I think this is something that literally the other day I heard on Radio 4 about midwifery training, and I was stunned. And this is just a small amount of some of the stats I've given you, small stats. In the UK, you can train to become a police officer or a firefighter, what were previously male-dominated industries, work, services, and your employer will cover the cost. You walk in, you train, you serve, and you are not handed with a 5-figure debt on your way out of the door. But in midwifery, you want to become a midwife? The profession that holds women's lives in their hands during the most vulnerable moments imaginable. You need a 3-year university degree, tuition fees that come close to $9,250 a year, and a partial NHS grant that basically comes close, doesn't really cover it. The NHS Learning Support Fund offers up to $5,000 a year, which sounds helpful until you do the math. Because let's just remind ourselves that the university tuition is just the beginning. We still have somewhere to live, we still have some food, we still have books, we still have all of these things that are not covered. Midwives are overwhelmingly women, and they are expected to fund their own route into the workforce. And this is a workforce that the NHS desperately needs, by the way. And graduates aren't getting jobs. Oh, and by the way, add to that a condition that you have to have done 40 natural births. And yet the funny thing is most people are now opting for C-sections. How is it that some are allowed to train and get jobs for free, but when it comes to something related to women, it costs? It makes no sense. Tell me again how much we value women's work. We clearly don't. Now, I want to talk about organizations. And again, I apologize about my presentation because StreamYard has messed it up. But if your organization had a women's network in 2020 and it doesn't have one in 2026, if you posted about gender equality but cut the DEI budget the moment it became politically inconvenient, you were never committed. You were never committed. You literally were just putting a sticker on, not even a plaster, a sticker. You couldn't even find a plaster for this wound. And it's a deep wound. You were performing. And you know what the women in your workforce have noticed? Because we always notice. Half of the women in corporates right now are changing their career plans because of what's happening. Let's just be clear, over the last year, nearly 9,000 women, Black women, I think that's the number now, it was 600,000, 900,000 Black women have lost their jobs in America. That's nearly a million women, if I can get my numbers right, nearly a million. It's an incredible amount of people. And many of those have been out of a job now for 12 months or more, struggling to be hired because of these policies that really benefit nobody. They don't even really benefit the organization. Women are staying quiet in meetings because they want to avoid having too many conversations around equality, if it means that that's going to impact them. They're taking lower pay, they're taking fewer risks because the ground beneath them keeps shifting. And you wonder why the pipeline is leaking. Well, organizations, you built the leak. The leak is because of you. And since the only thing that seems to be able to get anybody's attention, afternoon, Phil, is numbers. Let's talk about those numbers. Because in 2025, 94% of jobs pay men more. Not some, not most, 94%. The median pay for all employees in the UK is 12.8% less for women than for men. Women earn 87 pence for every pound that a man earns. And over 2.5 million jobs held by women pay below the real living wage. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? It's crazy. That's 700,000 more than those held by men. And at the current rate of progress, it will take 29 years to close the gender pay gap. And by the way, to reach full global gender equality, gender parity, is going to take 123 years. 123 years. And that's by the World Economic Forum. But if you look at the UN actually says that it could take up to 286 years. And yet, the crazy thing is, equality hasn't gone too far. It actually hasn't gone far enough. But you know what's crazy is almost half of all men globally say that women's rights have gone too far. About 67%, 57% of Gen Z men believe that the efforts to promote women's equality has now gone so far that it discriminates against men. But let's understand this correctly. Women earn 94% less than um, of men in major occupations. They're disproportionately stuck in low level and insecure work, and they fund their own training for some of the most critical roles in our society. And the complaint is that equality has gone too far. I'm just wondering if you saw the stats, heard the stats. And I will say this again. I've not given you a lot of stats. I've only given you a few. So the issues that we are facing is a retreat on women's rights. They're in regression at the moment. And their experience in the workplace and in their lives is also in regression. And we're still saying that equality has gone too far. You know, accountability has barely arrived for women. Barely. We're still so far behind, not because we're not capable, but because there are too many guardrails, too many gates. And I want to talk about the men, about who is complaining. This is not an all men. Hello, all. This is not an all men, as I've said before, but it is absolutely who hold fewer than 1 in 3 senior positions. Another stat for you. These are the people who set the laws, set the budgets, approve pay bands, and then declare the outcome meritocratic. I spoke to a CPO recently, and I can tell you she does not have the budget she should have to make decisions about who coaches with who. She has to go to the CEO to get his approval. Like, what the hell? Not only that, they will promote somebody, a man, who actually isn't very good, into 2 levels above, who hasn't proved his worth, but believes he's great. And because he's part of the boys' club, he gets the increase not just in his title, in his access to senior leaders, but also in his pay and benefits. And women who are doing the work don't. And that's why they leave or they go quiet. The same men who give themselves a pay rise and call it market rate, who evaluate their own mediocre performance and call it potential, but demand rigor and excellence from every woman in the room, especially if she's a Black woman or a woman of color, whilst their own shortcuts go unremarked upon. My husband recently, David McQueen, wrote an article about decisions and about the fact that often we are keeping people in organizations who are destroying other people, especially men, because maybe they bring in a bit of money. But actually, they're destroying everybody around them, and we make it okay. But a woman who says, hey, why don't we do something a little bit different? You know what we do to her? We tell her she's too much. Women are clearing up after these men, for sure. They're doing the invisible work, the emotional labor, the follow through, the preparation, the mentoring, the relationship building. They are the cultural glue that holds the teams together and being routinely overlooked for promotions, routinely overlooked for support and elevation, and overlooked for the pay rise, for the bonus. We're not failing to be seen. We are being deliberately ignored and overlooked. The gender pay gap widens significantly for employees over 40, which is not a coincidence. I mean, you just look at news presenters. The older women get kicked out sooner, real quick. But the men, the old men, they get to stay forever. And this is precisely the point at which women's leadership potential becomes the most visible, the most threatening. We get older, we get more stronger in ourselves, and suddenly we are a problem. It doesn't break down the system by accident. It is actually done by design. It's maintained to keep women in their place. And these are the men, the same men with mothers, with wives, with daughters, sisters, nieces, colleagues. The men calling for women to be punished for not having children have mothers. The executives awarding themselves bonuses while their female colleagues take home 87 pence in the pound have wives, daughters, sisters, nieces, colleagues. The politicians dismantling productive rights, stripping healthcare, removing protections, rewriting women out of policy documents. These men were raised by women, supported by women, and in many cases would not be in the rooms that they are in. They couldn't occupy them without the support that women have given them. They've backed them, they've cleared the path for them, and still they chose this. So there is no gentler way of saying it. Honest to God. I need women to understand that you are the change. We cannot continue to wait on men. We cannot. And as much as they do need to be part of the change, we need to understand that we are the change. I'm going to say this again for those of you who've just come. StreamYard has screwed over my presentation, but I'm not mad about it. It just is what it is. You know, we can't wait on the government. We can't wait on the CEOs. We can't wait on the next policy review or the next election cycle. You right now, you are the change. And the reason why men are so comfortable is because the system hasn't actually cost them anything. And he has decided it never should and then protected it. That comfort is the problem. And it is no longer ours to manage. We have to take responsibility for ourselves because they're not changing it. And it's not, I can't wait 86 years, and neither can you. The woman who's here, the woman who hears this, you maybe have been playing it safe. You're the one who's maybe been swallowing your opinion in meetings because the climate doesn't feel so right. Maybe you've been giving everything to a system that really keeps taking but never quite reciprocates. I see you. And you need to hear this. You are the change. Because what I know after 35 years in business and thousands of conversations with women in leadership, the system will not save us because it was never designed to. The policies, the program, the funding, yeah, they help. They do, and we do need them. They matter, and we should fight like hell to protect them. But they are not the source of your power. You are. And so one of the things I want us to think about is enough and what that enough is. Enough shrinking to make somebody else feel bigger. Enough competing with the woman next to you for the one seat because they want you to do that because then you don't see what's really going on. Enough treating other women as a threat. We've been conditioned to do this. Enough feeding a system that only wants you as useful and silent. Enough asking for breadcrumbs when you made the damn bread yourself. And enough allowing the nonsense without consequences. Enough. And let me tell you what else it looks like. It looks like speaking up in the room, even when your voice shakes. Because we're not going to silence our voices to make other people feel good, them feel okay. Because you know what? They take our ideas anyway. Enough negotiating your worth and refusing to feel guilty about it. It looks like negotiating worth and refusing to feel guilty about it. You know how many women I speak to and we talk about increasing their salary and they say, oh, but it's a lot of money. It doesn't matter. Oh, it's not about the money. Yes, it is. Because when you charge your worth, the woman behind you has a precedent that she can charge hers. It's about investing yourself in the way that you invest in everybody else. Top of the list, ladies. It's about not blocking yours or other women's brilliance. It's about calling wrong. And when she says it, you say it too, backing that woman and working together. And it looks like no longer waiting for somebody else's permission. Stop outsourcing your validation. And it looks like surrounding yourself with women who refuse to settle and who will hold you to the highest standard. Enough is enough looks like you. It looks like you when we work together. And let me tell you, when we together stop feeding the system, it cannot help but starve. But you know, we have to starve it together. It means that we're not about a panel or a speech. We are about every day working together as women. Because 49.7% of the world's population, together is our only option. I founded Magnificently You because with every fiber of my being, I want a world that becomes brighter for women. And it becomes brighter when we truly see our light, when we start owning our worth. I have watched women transform when they stop waiting for permission, stop outsourcing their validation, when they stop carrying everybody else's luggage through guilt, and when they finally look in the mirror and recognize the absolute magnificent woman that they are, that's staring back at them, that's staring back at you. Now, this work doesn't happen in isolation, it happens in community. And I want you to note something here. A lot of the men are operating in community. They bring this person in, they're calling each other brother, and they've only just met. They're off to the golf course. Bill gets a job. Bill has never done this job, but Bill knows Jack and Jack knows John, and he gets a job. Like, we need to do more of this together. Let's stop talking about it. Let's start taking action. Because when women are held, when they are challenged, when they are activated, and they are reminded of who they are, everything changes. And that's what I do. That's my work. And that's what I've always done. And I'll not just stop doing it just because the political weather has changed. I don't really care that it's changed. I care that we do something different for ourselves. Enough is enough. We need to stop shrinking. We need to stop performing for gratitude. We need to recognize that if we're waiting for men, we may wait forever because the numbers don't lie. We have to build our own tables. We need to fill it with women that see your brilliance, and we need to fill it with women who then help us find the how-tos and the hacks. And I'm just going to say something else. We don't need to do it like men either. I think that's a really important point. Our world needs more women. Our world needs more women in leadership, because you know what? What we continue to see is that the violence keeps playing out. The choice is to bomb as opposed to talk. The choice is to accuse as opposed to find ways to understand. The choice is to ignore, is to call us emotional when actually we've learned to regulate our emotions, we've learned to deal with emotions, and most men, many men, have not. There are nothing wrong with our emotions. But when we keep playing into trying to be alpha male, then actually what we do is we keep feeding the system. It's time to stop feeding the system. Women in my world no longer wait. They don't wait for permission to be magnificent. We give ourselves permission to thrive. And so, I just want to know if you are ready. Are you ready? Because I am. And if you're in an organization and you know that you need to do better by your women, then take a stand. Stop cowering. I appreciate that there are things that happen. There are strategies and all the different things. But let me just be honest. The research says that 60 to 90% of strategies don't actually work. You need to do better, because change starts when we stop hiding and we start taking action. So if you're ready for different, please get in touch. Come and speak to me, because it's so important that you do. And even if it's not me, I'm not really bothered. I'm not like, you have to work with me. I'm like, you have to work with somebody. You need to do different because I'm here and I'm ready. I'm not going anywhere. And I hope that you're ready too. So, my last thing is this. This has been my Queen's speech, warts and all. And I'm going to let you know that I am magnificently yours because I believe that we are all, every damn one of us, born magnificent. It's just the layers of labels that we keep carrying that make us not see our own light. But I want you to see your light and own your worth. But to do that, you're going to have to do something different. And I'm really ready to help you do that. This has been my Queen's speech for March 2026 in the month of International Women's, whatever we want to call it. And I just want you to know that change is possible when we work together. Now, since I'm here, if there is anybody here, I'm happy to answer a question. I'm happy to hear what you've got to say. But I just want you to know that we cannot continue the way that we are going because women, we are going backwards and we can't make a change if we don't do it together.